Let's start Perek Mem Beis. V'hinei b'mashkasav le'il. V'hinei, based on what's written before. Before means Perek Mem Aleph. V'inyin yira tata. As far as the idea of yira tata is concerned. Stop. Perek Mem is an interesting Perek, and I guess every time you learn it different. But at this particular juncture, I would say that Perek Mem Aleph is talking about 2 points: Eved and Ben. Eved and Ben. First half of Perek Mem Aleph is Eved. That would be till page Nun Zayin Reish Amud Beis, page 114. 3 lines from the top, and then from there till the end of the Perek is Ben. What is Eved and what is Ben? Again, it's hard to say, but I would say, just to use Isis, Eved is the Yira of Yiris, and Ben is the Ahava of Ahavas. In other words, there's no greater Yira than Eved, there's no greater Aved than Ben. Because the Rebbe actually says it is 2 different mitzvahs aseh, Yira and Avdus. The Rebbe says in Perek Mem Aleph, Yira is one mitzvah aseh, and Av being an Eved is a different mitzvah. Avad b'shem is a separate mitzvah aseh, and he learns that this is tefillah. Yira means to feel an emotion of fear for the Eibishter. Avodah means to be a slave of the Eibishter. The nekud of being a slave is that I'm not serving Hashem because of how I feel. Even if my feeling is a fear of respect and awe. I'm serving Hashem because Hashem comes before me. Avdus. There's no greater bittul to the Eibishter than the bittul of an Eved. And the nekud of being a slave is that I come to the Eibishter, listen Eibishter, you're the master, I'm the slave. Whatever you tell me, I'm going to do. And the Rebbe explains in his notes on the Tanya that the chiddush of being an Eved is that when you're an Eved, you're relating to the Adin on the Adin's terms. When you're serving Hashem with your own understanding, your connection to Hashem is based on you. When you're serving Hashem as a slave, your connection to Hashem is based on Hashem. And that's why the greatest milah that could be is the bittul of Madrega of Eved. And it's indicated, it's implicit, that there's a difference between Yira and Avdus. The second half of my mouth spoke about the highest Madrega of Ahava, if you will. It's higher than Ahava. It's called Ben. What's Ben? Ben means a person who puts Hashem before himself, not in terms of bittul, but in terms of gilui, where you're serving Hashem not for yourself, you're serving Hashem for the Eibishter, like the Madrega of Shem Shamayim is Ahev al Yodacha. You're serving Hashem so that other people should love the Eibishter. You're not doing Torah and mitzvahs, so you should come closer to Hashem, which is called a daita den avshei for you. You're serving Hashem for the Eibishter's sake, to bring Hashem down, which is the Madrega really of Tzadik Gomer. So Perek Mem Aleph gave you these 2 extremes. It seems to me. The first half talk about Avdus, and the second half talk about Ben. Bepratus, specifically, the Alter Rebbe made a distinction between the word Yira and the word Eved. And I guess you could say that you can make a distinction between the word Av and the word Ben. But close, it's the same thing. Perek Mem Beis is about Yira. The Alter Rebbe is going to make an argument. The argument he's going to make in Perek Mem Beis is that every Yira has Avdus. The core, the pnimius, the nekud of every yid is being a slave of the Eibishter. In other words, I'll give it to you in this form. It's brought Chassidus that you find that whoever the Eibishter loves repeats his name twice. Avram, Avram, Yankiv, Yankiv, Mesha, Mesha, Havaya, Havaya. How come there's no Yitzchak, Yitzchak? In the whole Chumash, there's no Yitzchak, Yitzchak. So it says in Chassidus like this: the pnimius de kapshat of Avram, Avram. You have it in the Gerz Zakesh Tesvav. Is that there's 2 Avram? There's Avram and Atzilus and Avram and Biyah. And there's a very big difference between the higher Avram and the lower Avram. There's a psik between Avram and Avram. Yankiv, there's Yankiv and Atzilus and Yankiv and Biyah. There's a very big difference. Yitzchak, there isn't. You know why? Because it's the same Yitzchak Lamayla, same Yitzchak Lamata. Why? Because Yitzchak is Gevura. Gevura is Yira. There's higher fear and lower fear, no question. A person could be afraid of the Eibishter because of his essence, and a person could be afraid of the Eibishter because he sees that the Eibishter is the Be'er Elam, the creator of the world. As we'll see in the beginning of the next Perek, Mem Gimel. But the Nekudah of Yira is bittul. I'm a slave of Hashem, Avdus. And because the nekud of Yira is Avdus, every madrega of Yira has the same point. The lowest fear is it's not about me, it's about God. The highest fear, it's not about me, it's about God. And this is why there's no Yitzchak, because there's only one inyan, the bittul, the Avdus of Yira. And that's what the Alter Rebbe means when he begins the Perek by saying, Mashikosav le'il bin Yira tata. In the previous Perek, what he added in Perek Mem Aleph was that Yira is not just, I think about Hashem and I gain respect for Him, I gain awe for Him. I think about Hashem that He's my master and I'm His slave. and that I'm connecting to him on his terms, not on my terms. Says the Rebbe, this is what we're going to be discussing now, Mem Beis. There's no psik. And then Samach Vav you have about this, yes. You learn Samach Vav, Svartim.
But also the Moshe is the same thing.
Right. Yeah, but the reason is because Moshe is not Atzilus and Biyah, it's Ein Sof and Atzilus. That's the chilik. But upon him, evidently, the fact that there's Moshe without a psik proves that there is at least two bechinas. Chachafil, there's no. In other words, the psik means a tzimtzum. There's two Moshes, but there's no tzimtzum between the first Moshe and the second Moshe. But Yitzchak, there's no two. You understand? And by the way, since you learned the Maimes, you know that it says over there that Havaya does have a psik, and that the psik of Havaya is greater than the non-psik of Moshe. So it's complicated. Based on what we discussed in the previous Perek about Yira, that there is the emotion of fear, and the emotion of fear is like the emotion of love. But the idea that at the point, at the pinnacle of Yira, there's Avdus, there's Bittel, and Bittel is the same from the lowest Madrega of Yira to the highest Madrega of Yira. Says the Rebbe, with this emphasis, you've hated Mashkasa B'Gemara. You can explain the Gemara. The Gemara says, it says in the Pasuk, and now Yidden. What is the Eibishter asking of you? Ki im liyira es Hashem alekecha, only to fear the Eibishter. And you'll see later on in this Perek, the next words is, what's the meaning of the word yira? Lalachas bedrachav, to walk in his ways, which means do Torah mitzvahs practically. What's the Pashup shot in this Pasuk? The Pashup in this Pasuk is Hashem could make Yiddishkeit harder and say that Hashem alekecha deiresh mi'imcha, so the Pasuk says, no, kiyim liyira. In other words, yira is easier than ava. It's easier to serve Hashem out of fear and to serve Hashem out of love. It's easy to serve Hashem because you're afraid of being punished, or because you're ashamed in presence of Him, or you're awed by Him, and to actually develop feelings of closeness and love for the Eibush. That's the Pashup shot in the Gemara, in the Pasuk. Is fear a small matter? In other words, even if it's true that it's easier to fear Hashem than to love Hashem, that makes fear easy. And the Gemara gives the strangest answer of all. Yes, it is easy. Compared to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a small matter, it's a trivial matter. There's a big long footnote from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe says that there's a whole piece of Gemara that's being skipped over here, and there's no chulu. There's no chulu. After the words, there should be a chulu. So the Rebbe says, because it's not negir to us. So now, the question is so plain. Hatiras, what kind of answer is this? Yeah, you ask a question. The pasuk says Hashem is telling every Yid all you have to do is fear Him, and the Gemara says it's not easy. And the Gemara answers that for Moshe Rabbeinu it's easy. But Hashem it says that Hashem is expecting fear not just from Moshe Rabbeinu, but is expecting fear from every Jew. For every Jew, it's not easy. Now, what's the answer? I'll tell you the answer. In other words, I'm going to introduce the shir with my Hagdama. The answer is that since when we say Yira, we mean bittul and not Yira. We don't mean emotions of fear towards Hashem, but the point of making yourself into Ever the Eibishter. This nekuda of Avdus goes to the Pintel Yid. The idea of Kabbalah Seil, or as the expression for Friedrich Rebbe, my Yid is a Kabbalah Seilnik, a Kabbalah Seilnik is a Yid, which is really the pshat over here. This nekuda comes from the Pnimis HaNeshama. As you guys know, we've been learning Tanya now since the beginning of the cycle. Whenever the Alter Rebbe talks about the Inyanim that do with Pnimis HaNeshama, he uses the words Klolos Yisrael. Remember by Avim Esoteris, right? Shebelev Klolos Yisrael, right? B'Shem Kol Yisrael. The end of Perek Mamal, he speaks about Ben. B'Shem Kol Yisrael. You as an individual have no business being a Ben of the Eibush. It's a lie. But B'Shem Kol Yisrael, you have Shaychas. I think there's no Shaychas. Since Yira is a Yifan Avdot, it goes to Pnimis HaNeshama, and it's negate to Klolos Yisrael, as a part of Klolos Yisrael, Yira is easy for you. So what's Pshat in the Gemara? Yeah, Lagabi Moshe, Milza Zutrasehi, Moshe HaNasi Hu HaKoil. The idea of Klolos Yisrael. In other words, if Yira were a limited Avodah, you could say it's hard or easy. But what we're saying is that Yira goes to those in Yonim which Jewish people have B'Yerusha, Mitadin of Klolos Yisrael, and in this particular case, it's through the Bechir of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's what makes it easy. We don't mean that Moshe has an easy time with Yira. We mean that Moshe in us has an easy time with Yira, because Yira, since Yira doesn't mean the emotion of fear, it means the Avodah that's Ovid, it means the Bittel. This Bittel we all have because of the Bechir of Moshe in each one of us. That's the Pshat in the Gemara. It's very gishmak, very nice. And he explains, the Teretz says, Ki kol nefesh v'nefesh. Every single Jew, says the Alter Rebbe, he based himself in the family of Jewish people. Yesh bo b'chinas Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom, has in himself a b'chin of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Tihu mishiva roim. He's amongst the 7 shepherds. Hamamshichem chayis al klus l'klos neshama Yisrael, that brings down vitality and godly power, to Jewish people as a klal. Notice the word klal is Yisrael. And we don't mean over here the emotion of fear, which is the emotion, the opposite emotion. We mean the avodas ovid, which is the pnimius of all fear. It says the Rebbe Shalachei Nikrayim B'Shem Reim, which is why these people are called shepherds. Now I want to just make a tangential observation. The Gemara says that there's Shiva Royim and Shmoyne Nesicha Yadim. There's 7 shepherds and 8, if you will, princes. And the difference between the 7 shepherds and the 8 princes is the 7 shepherds are leaders. The 8 princes are Pasha Tzaddik Mugemurim, holy people, have no shaykhs to this world whatsoever. I mean, give me an example. Yeah, David HaMelech would be a Raya. Yishai Avi David, that the Gemara says that Meis Be'et Yisham Nachash is in the Sich. There's no shaykhs to Elam. The dirk and the word, the Raya, is not just that he's a tzaddik. He's a klal. And I heard from somebody once that a Raya is involved with the world. So it's shaykhs for him to do something that the way it's nimshach into the world has a chasaran. The Nesich has no shaykhs to Elam Hazeh. But he's as holy as he is, he's a prat. The Raya, as real as he is a klal. Moshe Rabbeinu, all of us, Shalom, Moshe Rabbeinu is one of the shepherds. And moreover, U'klos Kulam, he includes all of them. He's the shepherd of Mehemna. Mehemna means 2 things, as you know. Mehemna means that he's reliable, he's trustworthy, he's accountable. And it means that he shepherds us in the matter of faith. The Hainu, in other words, and what does he particularly give us? He gives us das, right? The Rebbe writes in his footnotes that Emunah is a teva by a yid, correct? Emunah is a teva by a yid. But there has to be Orei Emunah. You have to shepherd faith. Why do you have to shepherd faith? Because of the syndrome called Ganva Pumachtata Rachamon Yakai. You can believe in God and do the opposite. Kedua, right? So what internalizes, what makes the Emunah real? Das. What does Das do? So there's 2 biyurim. One is that it gives credibility to the Emunah. The Emunah should be real. I believe in God, then I know God exists. And the other is to be mamshach min hamoyach el alev, that what I know in my brain I should feel in my heart. Das is maftech the kol shit. Says the Rebbe here, the intent of the Alter Rebbe in talking about das is not so much the idea that emunah is mamshach, das is mamshach the emunah from a makif topnimius, but the idea that das is mamshach min hamoyach el alev. You should feel in your heart the bittul you have in your neshama. You should feel in your heart. The way it feels in the heart is a feeling of fear or respect, and so forth. And this emotional feeling is the gilui of the avdos, of the bittul, which is a Yerusha from Moshe Rabbeinu. Leidas ad Hashem kol echad kifi hasagas nishmasei, to know God, kol echad, each one, kifi hasagas nishmasei, according to the intellectual reach of his neshama. V'shar shalamayla, which is of course based a lot on the sherish of the neshama lamayla. V'yinikasa, and the beginning of the nourishing, of the giving chayis to this das is Mishayrish Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu. All of Hashem comes from the Neshama Moshe Rabbeinu, that he's a close dick Neshama. Hamashreshes, which is rooted by das ha'elyin, shabi tzviras datzilas, the higher madrege das, the 10 spheres of atzilas, which I'm going to make believe I don't know what it means. Hamiyuchades b'matilim, or I don't know what it means. Hamiyuchades b'matilim baruchu, which is one the Eibishter mamish. Maitzel means ein sof higher than atzilas. Netzel is atzilas. Maitzel means ein sof atzilas. That of course the Eibishter in his das is one, and in the madrega of Ein Sof, which is higher than Atzilus, it's even a greater madrega of him and his knowledge one than the idea of Eva than Huamad and Huayedeh. But the closest idea is Hashem is one with his knowledge, and a Yid is able to tap in to the koyach of das that the Eibishter gave Moshe Rabbeinu. The koyach of das that exists in Atzilus, which is Hashem and his knowledge are one, that we too should know the Eibishter. And knowing the Eibishter doesn't just mean understanding him. Knowing the Eibishter means that this that we understood is real. And in this case, what does real mean? That when we know in our brain, we feel in our heart. We're margishit in the leiv. Moreover, there's another aspect of this. It's not just the first Moshe Rabbeinu, but that every generation, the sparks come down from the original Neshama Moshe Rabbeinu. That which manifests in the bodies and the souls of the wise men of the generation, who are called in Chazal the eyes of the generation. They too should teach das to the people, so that they should intellectually know the greatness of the Eibishter. And here he uses the word avoida, ula avdei b'leiv nefesh, to be slaves of the Eibishter with heart and spirit, that in our heart we should feel yira, and the yira is megala, not just fear of the Eibishter, but the avodas of it, the avdos to the Eibishter. And the Rebbe observes that it doesn't say mislapshem benefesh v'guf. It says beguf v'nefesh, to indicate that the uniqueness of Chachmei Adei, any Eida, is not just in the neshama, it's the guf also, which is special and different. That's a keli for what was a gili in the guf of Moshe Rabbeinu. Says the Rebbe, ki havei deshabalev lefi das. The way we serve Hashem in our heart is according to das. In other words, the way we feel yira in our heart, and how that the pnimius of this yira is not just fear, but avoida bittul. It begins with das. Every Jew has a neshama. It's called Kol Yisrael. We're all part of Kol Yisrael. In the neshama we have atzmi, the infinite qualities, like Mesiras Nefesh, and bittul, and das. Das means that Hashem should not just be an idea that we understand, but that we know. And we have to bring out this atomic quality of bittul and atomic quality of das, l'dei gilu, with the help of Moshe. Moshe means the nikud of Moshe in ourselves. And what we experience is fear. What the fear really is avoida bittul. K'mesha Kosav, as the Pasuk says, Das alakei avicha v'avdei b'leiv shalom. You should know the God of your Father and serve Him with your whole heart. V'nefesh chafetzim, with a desiring, with a spirit of will. Because this is the idea of das. It says the Rebbe, also the way when Mashiach comes, it says, people are not going to have you're not going to teach one another, to tell one another, you have to know God intellectually. We're all going to know God. In other words, in Lasad Lavi, we're all going to have our own das for the Eibishter. Right now, we get the das from the help of Moshe Rabbeinu. So, Dalt Rebbe, Iker, Hadas. The real truth of what das is, it's not about understanding the Eibishter. Sheyedu Gos Hashem, they should understand the greatness of the Eibishter from Sfarim. And what is das really? To delve one's mind deeply. And the greatness of the Eibishter, to plant one's thought in the Eibishter with power, and determination and powers of the heart, v'amayach, and the brain. And notice this is the same words of Tanya Sof Perek Gimel with Shinuyim. The Rebbe observes with the Shinuyim between Perek Gimel and Perek Membeis. Till a person's thought will become mikusheres. The key word is hiskashnes, connected by the Shem, bekesher amitz v'chazak, with a mighty and strong attachedness. When you see something physical, seeing is believing, and when you see something, the reality of it is extremely firm and true, and we have to know the Eibishter like as if we see it. And thinks about machshavte in his thought. Kened as it is known. It's the same as true in Ruchnis. Kened as it is known. Shedas hu loshen is kashas. The word das denotes attachedness. K'mei va'adam yad of a game, like it says in Tanya Sof Perek Gimel, from the words va'adam yad es chav, the idea of knowing and becoming attached to. So this is what the Alter Rebbe is saying. That why is it a good teretz in Lagavi Meisha Milsa Zutresehi to fear the Eibishter? And the answer is because fear is a midah that has to do with etzem. Fear is a midah, just like avas a midah, because the pnimius of fear is bittul. Yira is taka only a midah like avas a midah, but bittul, which is the pnimius of every yira, is an inyan atzmi. Every inyan atzmi, every Jew has beteva as part of Kol Yisrael, and the gili of it is through the Moshe Rabbeinu.
So this ends the current shiur.